turning the march on up.
Okay, yeah, let's turn it on because
We have a quorum.
And who are the people from Lower Stars group?
They're right here in the front.
Let me just say hello.
Sure.
So should I just introduce you guys, give a presentation?
Sure.
Okay.
Morgan,
I wasn't sure
it would be great.
Morgan is coming
He's on
or
his
not.
way. He said he was running 5 minutes late, and that was 3 minutes ago. So can you do Pexlip first, and he should be here by then? Because I think it's important, you know, because they're the...
That was what my intention was, to introduce him first, and he would introduce you, and I assume you probably had that in mind too. All right, we'll just give it a couple minutes.
Okay. Yeah, he just said he was on his way.
No problem.
Alright, so I wanted the meeting kind of to bring it up.
Is anyone from EDC here?
He's coming. I just was speaking to Morgan. You know Morgan?
Yes.
He is on his way, but he said he'll be here in 5 minutes.
He's the one who told me the city doesn't have the money to repair the pier. The pier that the new market site is on.
Well,
Which seems to be a crux.
Are you doing Pexlip first?
yeah, but
'Cause he
that's going to
said-
be a 1 minute
Right.
report.
He said if we need to start, we can start without him. And then
You
I'll
with
try.
EDC, Mike?
Yes, we're the
I'm
consultant.
Paul Lopez. I'm the vice chair.
Nice to meet you. Very nice to meet you. I'm with Star White House.
Morgan has told me that the city doesn't have the money to repair the platform that the new market site's on. Is that accurate to you?
I don't know, because we're just working on the Esplanade. So that's a Morgan.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, we're working, that needs a good chunk of money too, but.
All right.
Yeah, so that's what we're working on.
Well, it's nice to meet you.
Nice to
Thank
meet
you for
too.
coming.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so.
Yeah.
All right, I think in that case, let's get it going. Okay, good evening, thank you. We're going to try to get underway now. And there, hello. My name is Paul Goldstein. I am chair of the Community Board 1 Waterfront Parks and Cultural Committee. And with me is Andrew Zelter, our co-chair. And we have several other members sitting up front. I guess I won't go through everyone introducing themselves at this point. We do have a fairly lengthy agenda, and we are glad you're here joining us. So let's get it underway. First item is a quick report on Pexlip Park. Okay, Pexlip Park is, as I'm sure most of you know, located right near the Esplanade, right by the Pexlip School. Okay, and as we know, we've worked with the community and the Parks Department to come up with an acceptable design for that park. So the news is that we were not aware until fairly recently that it also had to undergo a review not just by Parks, but by the Landmarks Commission. So Landmarks did review it, and they did have some comments about some elements of the park, but the main outcome of that is that they're going to add a few shade trees, and that seemed to be what the Landmarks was looking for. And the other good news on that is that if all goes well, the project should be in construction next year and completed in early 2021. Let's hope so. These projects don't always keep to their time frame, but we'll certainly do our best to try to get it going because we know everyone's looking forward to that. Okay, so let's move along to the main items on the agenda. First item is Brook and Birch Esplanade. As you know, that's the area down by the waterfront, adjacent to the seaport, and we're really talking about an area tonight that runs from Peck Slip to Catherine Slip within CB3. I guess since boards 1 and 3. Also, board 3 has jurisdiction over their terrain. We're going to mainly focus on our section, which runs from the Brooklyn Bridge to Peck Slip. So anyway, let me allow Morgan Jones from EDC to give an introduction and tell you about this project.
Excellent. Hi, everybody. My name is Morgan Jones, and I'm from, can you hear me on this microphone? Sure. No, it's not on. That's why. It might help to turn it on. Let's see if it works.
I think you got it.
It's on now.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Awesome technology. My name is Morgan Jones, and I'm from the New York City Economic Development Corporation. And I'm joined here by folks from Star White House, who are working on this project called the Brooklyn Bridge Esplanade. It's located on the East River between Peck Slip and Catherine Slip in Manhattan, so just along the waterfront around there. We want to talk about this project and share this with everyone here. We were actually at this committee meeting last month where we presented to your committee. Thank you for having us again for this month as well too. We also held a municipal a meeting at the municipal building in January as well, where there are a few folks from this committee as well as some folks in this room that also attended. And so we want to speak about this possible open space here. We've been requesting to keep our presentation very short, so we'll move fairly quickly, and I'm around if you have any other further questions, and I speak frequently with the community board about our projects often, so you can always reach out to the community board as a resource. So quickly, the design goals of this project: connecting the inland to the neighborhoods, employing resilient and floodable materials. This is especially important the way that sea level rise has changed in the last few years in this area in particular. Providing a continuous esplanade and bikeway. There's a lot of connections and gaps that need to be fulfilled along this area, and so this will be a helpful open space aspect of this area to do so. Minimize pedestrian and bicycle conflicts, which is really important from a safety standpoint. Utilize site furnishings, pallet, and adjacent built sections of the esplanade to ensure that all areas along the esplanade have a smooth transition throughout. Funding comes from HUD, U.S. Housing and Urban Development, through a CDBG fund, or Community Development Block Grant Fund, for $15 million, and that's being distributed through the Lower Manhattan Development Corporation, or the LMDC. Then $6 million between the Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer, as well as Councilmember Margaret Chin, the council member for this district. Total budget, adding that together, is $21 million with a project size of about 1,500 linear feet. So we've already done some community outreach. We've held meetings with the municipal building. We had an online survey, which we'll speak to in a little bit, that got a lot of really great responses. We presented to both community boards 1 and 3, just north of here for community board 3 as well, about this project and to get feedback. So we're still here to kind of get feedback, but we're also here to share some results from the surveys that we presented, which Star White House will speak about shortly. And sort of the overall timeline, this survey aspect is a part of our conceptual design aspect of it. Preliminary design will start to come out this spring, so literally in about a month or two. Final design will happen during about 5 months. We will be returning back to the community board about this project again this year. Then there's procurement and then construction. And the idea is for the construction to happen, or planned construction to happen, somewhere between winter 2020 and spring 2021. This is a very tight timeline, and so we want this to be as tight as possible because this is the deadline to be able to maintain that federal funding that I spoke about just recently, about that $50 million. And also, this is a great community benefit and open space that's really needed in the area. Again, the design is to be completed by fall, and so Star White House is going to speak very shortly about sort of what they've seen in the area, give a very quick synopsis of it since we only have so much time, and then go into some of the survey results that we've heard from folks in the community. And it's been hundreds and hundreds of survey results that we've received from folks within Community Board 1 and Community Board 3 about this project. So without further ado, we'll go into the Esplanade projects with Star White House. Thank you.
Thank you, Morgan. My name's Gail Whitwer-Laird. I'm a senior landscape architect at Star White House. It's good to see, I see some familiar faces from the outreach meeting at the Borough President's office. That's great to have this continuity. As Morgan said, we will come back to you at every step of the process. And right now we're really at the kind of analysis and intake phase of the project. So what's very exciting is that this is somewhat of a missing link in the Esplanade. Sections to the south and sections to the north are either completed or about to be complete. And so this will give you that continuous Esplanade that was part of the original vision. One of the things, so your community board is just from Peck Slip to the Brooklyn Bridge, but Community Board 3 has the section from the Brooklyn Bridge to Catherine Slip. So we are making sure we're aware of related projects that are happening while we're doing this design. One that was just mentioned is Peck Slip, so it's great to have that happening as well. And when we design the Esplanade, we'll look at how those two projects connect and what happens. We're working with DOT to see what the curb alignment is, where the crosswalks are, to make sure that the pedestrian experience is prioritized at that intersection. The two projects to the south, the Tin Building, we know is something that EDC can tell you more about. In the New Market Building, we just have it there. It hasn't been designed, but it is a factor to the south of that project area. And then to the north, we'll be coordinating very closely with the LMCR Flood Protection Project with Community Board 3. So, we're taking all of these related projects into consideration. We're also just doing, our planning due diligence and looking at the related open space resources, community institutions. You are a historic district. We want to make sure we're connecting to the fabric that the project's adjacent to. And we've done a fair number of walks up and down the Esplanade, and as you all know probably more as well as we do, that it's starting to rust on the rail. The paving is in disrepair in a lot of places, and that the bikeway, the interim bikeway that comes along the Esplanade, actually takes up a fair amount of real estate. So the other sections have it going on above the curb, but along South Street, and that really frees up more space. You don't have much more space along that edge, so part of the long-term plan is to push the bikeway more towards South Street and open up more of the public Esplanade. There is one section where there is a deck, there's a relieving platform next to a DEP outfall, and that's an image of the DEP outfall, and part of the scope of this work will be to provide access to the shoreline. That was something that your borough president lobbied for and funded, so that's part of the scope of the work. But our work only goes up to the bulkhead. We don't go beyond the bulkhead. There's lots of funding and permitting issues that kind of prevent that. So further up, definitely the paving and seating are in dire need of repair. In fact, I hope that fence got moved, because you might not want to sit on that bench. The painting of the FDR is nearing completion, so all that staging that's been going on will be removed. And then at the very northern section, it intersects Catherine Slip. So it's nice as you have this bookend of the two slips, and you'll have the new Esplanade between those two areas. So our analysis is looking at what's existing there now, what facilities are there, where's opportunities for green. You're lucky the southern section actually has the most amount of land outward where we can actually do some planting. And we're looking at the existing both bikeways and pedestrian connections. And what's covered and what's not covered. The purple is all covered, and the orange is what's uncovered in the shoreline. So there's a lot of, I don't want to call them restraints, but things we need to be aware of, including the underground infrastructure. DEP has a lot of old water lines and drains underneath here, and all of the water from the FDR, as you know, drains through here. So it's very important that we make sure the underground is fixed before we put new paving on top. So it's not as glamorous, but it's equally important. So I'm going to pass it over to Dorothy McCausland in our office, who ran some great community outreach this fall, and she'll share the results of those surveys.
Thank you. Hello. I'm Dorothy. I'm a planner at Star White House, and I'm a little tall. Thank you.
No problem.
So happy to report report. So since we started our outreach in December 2018, we were on site 2 days in December and collected 37 survey responses from individuals from all over the world and as well as New York. We had an outreach event in January at the Borough President's office, which was attended by approximately 40 members of the community. And our online survey garnered over 700 responses in English and in Spanish.
And in Chinese.
And in Chinese, our in-person
Yes,
Chinese,
in-person
yes.
Chinese.
Yep. So our study findings show that happily most of the respondents were actually community members that would most likely be using the site. You can see in the map in the bottom left graphic, the darker purple is the more heavily represented zip codes in the survey responses. So our survey findings, hopefully they're not so hard to read for you in the back, but I'll go over them here. Most of the respondents said they sometimes or often use the Esplanade. Most frequently, top 5 most frequently cited uses of the Esplanade were walking, followed by enjoying the view, cycling, socializing, and jogging. The top 5 favorite elements of the Esplanade were river views, bridge views, skyline views, greenery, and quiet seating. So people really appreciate the view shed here. People's top 5 concerns for the Esplanade probably come as no surprise to you. Cleanliness and maintenance was far and away number 1, followed by poor lighting, poor drainage, preserving the site ecology, and then pedestrian safety. Preferred enhancements, top 5 again. First was more vegetation, followed by improved lighting, pedestrian path improvements, access to the shoreline, and pavement repair. And finally, the redesigned Esplanade should be, the top 5 adjectives were active, natural, easily accessible, well connected to the East River Greenway, and social. So we're keeping this very valuable community feedback in mind as we begin to think about the design for this new Esplanade area, as well as the existing design precedents of areas that have already been completed to the north and south, which are photos shown on the screen. So we'll be using the same vocabulary for paving, railings, plantings, and seating, and we will be continuing the already separated bike path along South Street. We'll be continuing that through our project area, so that will ensure the separation of pedestrian and cyclist activity. And again, the programming precedents that we're looking at, and we're open for more feedback, but this is what we've seen so far. Naturalistic plantings, more bike parking, enhanced lighting, interpretive signage so people know they're in a historic area and what they're looking at. Fitness equipment has been very popular so far, and amphitheater seating to help people enjoy the view.
Thank you very much. And so, so going back to our timeline here, currently this survey is the start of the conceptual design process. We don't have any exact designs as of yet, but that'll be coming soon. So again, we'll be returning to the community about what those updates will look like very soon. And then for any additional information about this project, 2 ways that you can go about that. You can contact myself directly. Again, my name is Morgan Jones. Morgan Jones at edc.nyc is how you can reach me. And then you can visit our project site, which is on our actual website for nycedc.com. Just search for East River Waterfront Esplanade, and you'll be able to find out about this project, as well as just the history behind the Esplanade and the East River Esplanade overall, and how it connects to this particular project. So I leave it to the committee and however you want to run the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that presentation.
Can I ask one question?
Just sure.
Is there any relationship or interaction with the East Side Coastal Resiliency Project with this?
No, that East Side Coastal Resiliency Project is north. But this project's further south. Yep.
Okay, let me tell you what we have in mind for tonight. So obviously, the committee would like to try to prepare some community recommendations on what type of improvements, elements we'd like to see in that. But before we do that, we want to take into account, of course, the survey results, but also hear from people here who came out and hear what kind of recommendations you have. And once we hear from you, we're going to have some committee discussion, and we're going to go through some possible options that we put together on things to think about for this area. But let me start with calling on the speakers who have signed up and try to keep it brief, 2 to 3 minutes tops. And again, after that, we're going to go to some committee discussion of this.
Do you have an extra package of the slideshow?
I don't.
Yeah, Bobby.
Should be enough for the committee.
Okay, first speaker, Stacy Shub, followed by Martin Sweeney.
I'll stand in a box.
Oh, thank you, Morgan.
No problem.
I basically wanted to advocate, as I often do, for, I guess I call it the redheaded stepchild of projects, which is lighting. I just wanted to find out who is the right person to be speaking with, or do you have an actual lighting architect selected? Typically, that just is kind of left to just like more is better, and I've seen what they've done in some areas where more doesn't necessarily mean safe. I want safe lighting, but I just want to know who is kind of a question. Who to talk to about that and be somewhat involved in passing some information
I
along.
assume that would be EDC.
Yeah, we would, or we would also have to correlate whatever works with this project with the State Department of Transportation as they manage the FDR that's above that purple area that was showing up a whole bunch. We would have to coordinate with them too.
Thank you. That's it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
It's all purple. Interesting color.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
State DOT chose an interesting color, yes.
do we have Martin Sweeney?
Yeah, one other thing to mention earlier.
Yeah, so there is, there, in the south and to the north, they are going to put lighting attached to the underside of the FDR, so that will be continued. And we are going to look at additional lighting in that larger pedestrian area. So we're absolutely, we do have someone looking at lighting for this, so we will absolutely take that into consideration.
Good. Thank you. And the next speaker that could step up to the mic to be ready is Rob Buchanan. Thank you.
And I'm Martin Sweeney. I'm with the Downtown Boathouse. Everybody probably knows us more for our free kayaking thing, but pretty much our main thing is public access to the water. And, you know, we just want to affirm our support for public access to the Brooklyn Bridge beach there. And, you know, we're a community service group, and we're willing to assist the community board if they'd like in facilitating, you know, even people just walking on the beach there. So
Great.
we just wanted to affirm our support for that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That's good. And after Rob is Austin Quinn.
Hi, Rob Buchanan, New York City Water Trail Association. I went to the meeting at the Borough President's office, and the phrase that was used in regards to the beach was managed access. I think that was the phrase. And I'm just here tonight to ask the committee to consider a resolution that it states very clearly that the preference of the community is for open access to the beach. In other words, no management, no gate. That people be allowed to enter the beach area and walk on it. I think it would be simple to clean the beach up and to cut a gap in the fence and put some steps in. Could do it in a day. And I really hope that's what happens. And I just want to say that I know that there's some concern about that, but that the best thing to look at when thinking about this is directly across the river in Brooklyn Bridge Park at Dumbo, where you have a free and open beach, and at the other end of Brooklyn Bridge Park at Pier 4, where you have another free and open beach. There's no fence, there's no gate, there's no management, there's no nonprofit that's asked to take on the responsibility. It's just the shore and the public walking on the shore, and that's really how it should be here. I'm happy to talk about currents and water quality and all those things get mentioned sometimes as reasons not to offer access, but I really don't think those are germane, have any bearing at all on the central fact of just, can the public get down onto the beach and stroll from one end to the other? If this park has that feature, it will really be a park with a focus, and it will be an amenity for the whole city. If it doesn't have that, all you guys really are talking about is painting and furniture and adjusting the lighting. That's really all you're going to be able to do, and you're going to have this natural feature, the only one in Lower Manhattan, blocked off from the public, and I just think that would be a terrible missed opportunity. So I hope that the resolution includes really clear language about free access. Thank you.
We have about at least 4 or 5 previous resolutions that directly addresses that, and we gave them to them last month, so they have them. Yep. For the record.
Just to inform people who may not be familiar with this beach issue, there is a proposal, and it's been floating around for years, to open up a small beach basically near the Brooklyn Bridge and allow people to use it as a beach. And it's been supported by a number of our local elected officials. We are going to certainly have a discussion on that item, but just in case you weren't familiar with it, you're going to hear some comments on that, as you will about a floating swimming pool coming up. But why don't we go to Austin, and then Plotter from Plus Pool is after that.
Great. All right, thank you. So I'm actually a fairly recent resident of the Seaport District, so thank you for the opportunity to get involved and participate. I'm here on behalf of, well, in support of Plus Pool. I grew up as a swimmer, coach, lifeguard, lessons instructor, and have had some amazing memories and made some great friendships through swimming and outdoor activity. So I'm here to talk on support of Plus Pool. I hope that it is able to coexist with any other renovations or improvements being made to the Esplanade, and that's all I have to say.
Great. Thank you. Okay, and the speaker after is Raul Escobar Lopez.
Hello, everybody. My name is Peter Tudzinski, and I'm a resident of the area, and I'm also here to speak on behalf of Plus Pool. As a resident in the area, the best part for me living here is the edges. So around the water, I spend a lot of time there hiking and jogging. But one of the things I can't do is swim. So I'm here to support the first water filtering pool. It's obviously a wonderful thing for kids to be able to learn how to swim in New York City, since people who live in Manhattan live on an island. But there's also something bigger. The real reason why I support Plus Pool is because it has the ability to inspire. So you're talking about something that is taking on a problem, whether that be environmental or based on access, and it's turning it into an opportunity. And I think that that's something really valuable for future generations. So that's why I'm here to support it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And then after you, I think I should have done this first. I'm going to have Kara and the people from Plus Pool present some information about the project. But here you're having some speakers speak in support of it, but then you'll hear more about it from them.
They warmed up.
Do you want to do that? You want to go back to Kara and then?
Maybe that would make sense, and then I'll call on you right after. Okay, are you guys ready to just give a brief presentation for those who don't know about Plus Pool?
My name is Dongping Wong. I'm an architect. An office just up the street. I'm here with Kara, Archie, Jeff, Jancy. You've already heard a lot about Plus Pool. In case you don't know what it is, I wanted to run through it very quickly. It's our proposal basically to build the world's first water filtering floating pool ever, and it was here in New York. And the point of it is, as one of our supporters pointed out, was giving access for the first time in over a century for anybody that wants to swim in the river Obviously, feeling safe from currents, from traffic, and also the quality of the water itself. It's something that, for anybody that may know, was very common actually about 100 years ago with the boathouses around the city. But obviously, as the water quality got worse, those boathouses got removed. And so what we want to do was actually bring a way where you could jump in sort of carefree. And so what we've done is created a project. It's about Olympic size, but it works like a big strainer. So the walls of the pool actually filter all the contaminants as the water moves into the pool. It filters upwards of 1 million gallons of water a day, and that water actually then gets returned back to the river in a minor way, cleaning the river. But I think more importantly for us was that it's a way for New Yorkers to actually get in touch with that real nature that surrounds the island. I've been here 15 years, and it took me a long time to realize the river was real water. Not something you kind of take a subway under or bike over, so that was really exciting when this idea came about. And so we worked quite a bit on this. We now have a patent for the engineering. We have a huge team behind us, and the slide before, thank you, was basically how the design came about, where swimmers and people that go to the beach and use the rivers in different ways, but we knew the project was for everybody, and so we designed it basically as 4 pools stuck together in one. It can open up to an Olympic linked pool. There's a kids section and a lounge section for people who just like to sit around in water. But it's a very simple premise with obviously a lot of complex engineering involved. And I'll leave it to Kara actually to talk about how we're organizing the whole thing.
Yeah, so we were invited here by the Waterfront Committee to just explain what Plus Pool is, because we have a lot of support within the community, and one of the areas that we're discussing with the mayor's office is in CB1 in the Seaport area, just off the Esplanade that was just presented. So,
Where did you use the mic?
oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Hi. So I was just saying, one of the areas that we've been looking at with the mayor's office is off of the East River, or the Brooklyn Bridge Esplanade. So we were invited here by the Waterfront Committee to share with you, everyone here from the public who's here to speak about what Plus Pool is. As Dawn was saying, we have this innovative engineering and a patent on the filtration system, and we know that it's 100% safe. Once we figured all this engineering out after the design concept, we created an organization to support the project. So we have a nonprofit called Friends of Plus Pool. That organization does a lot of different recreational programming that we're looking to bring into the community in which we're placed. We currently are already employing some of that in partnerships with pools throughout all 5 boroughs. We have a Learn to Swim program that we do for youth. We work in schools across the 5 boroughs that are interested in using Plus Pool as a way to teach people about STEM. And we collect and disseminate water quality data like that we're engaging for the pool, and we are essentially, as an organization, a steward of recreation and environmental education. As I said, we're looking at a site. This is one of the areas that we could potentially be installed. And we just want to welcome the opportunity to work with the local community here to see if this is something that we could place here, and if we do, what we might propose. And we're happy to work with the Waterfront Committee on any sort of resolution to that end. And we're happy also to answer any questions that you guys might have about the project, about Plus Pool, and we'll be here at the end as well. If there are any questions now.
And what months over the year is it generally, would it be open?
We have designed it for a 6-month season, so it's longer than the public pools that are 3 months. And we're still exploring opportunities for the off season. We have a lot of different ideas for that. So also community input, welcome on that.
Okay.
Yes.
If there's a couple of questions, we could take them now. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah,
Go ahead, David.
Engineering reports apparently speak very well of the ability to filter the water. What did they say about the stability of the structure in the waters of New York Harbor, which are treacherous?
Absolutely. We have naval architectures on staff, and it's actually designed as a vessel. So it's kind of like a boat, would be stationed in the harbor, so it'll rise and fall with the currents. And we've done, with those naval architects, stability tests. I forget all the other technical terms of what they're called, but everything that you do when you determine that for a floating structure.
One of the reasons why the area right off the Esplanade is good for the pool. It's actually somewhat protected. The currents are not as strong as some of the other locations we're looking at. It's well within the range of the tie downs that we're looking at.
You're familiar with the experience of New York City Seaco docks?
We are, very much so.
Okay.
We have McLaren Engineering on our team.
Okay, Joe, and then we'll take a couple more.
Restraints on using the pool?
We don't anticipate any, no.
No?
Joe, you're young enough.
Okay, go ahead.
I have a question about occupancy. You know, we're in the city. It's going to be a completely unique. Of course, I think everybody here is very excited about a possibility. But what are you going to do if the demand far outstrips the occupancy, the constraint, which of course you'll have some constraint, and I wonder what that is, and have you thought through this?
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that we haven't defined yet. We will still need to understand what our actual capacity is when we go through the permitting process. We anticipate, what it would be. But once we do that, we'll have some sort of reservation system we anticipate, but also it will be, we want to make sure that there's enough space reserved for people that can just come. We've talked about possibly doing some sort of reservation system that if you don't show up, you're charged, but we want it to be free. But that's definitely something we would want to explore with the local community in which we're placed.
Michael?
Could you be very specific as to what location you're looking at in the East River? And also, how much land, upland, would you need for whatever support services?
Great question. The area in Community Board 1 that we're looking is to the north end of Pier 17 and south of the Brooklyn Bridge. In terms of what we need...
That's a big area. Can you narrow it down?
Well, the area is, the pool is 200 by 200. So it's, can you describe exactly where he rendered it?
Thanks. It is, one of the options we're looking at is whether or not we can locate the upland potentially off of where the old fish market building is. So it's coming off of that corner and moving you towards the footing of the Brooklyn Bridge. If you look at that whole area, it is closer to Pier 17 than the bridge. But like Kara said, it's about a 200 by 200 thing, which isn't obviously a whole area, but it does take up, I'd say, a fifth of that corner on the side.
And how much space upland?
We're looking at 2,500 to 3,000 square feet. We're designing it as if it was obviously a full public pool with all the requirements for lockers and showers and first aid and restrooms.
Where would you put those?
There's a couple of different options for it. They could be, it's something that we would need to work with. It's site specific, obviously. So it could be floating. It could be on the Esplanade. It could be as part of the redesign of some of the other areas. That's something that we really need the city to tell us where we can go.
So there'd be an actual approach from the land
Yes.
to walk out
Absolutely.
to the pool?
Absolutely.
Wouldn't have to swim.
So that would be the whole idea, wouldn't it? Yeah.
All right, Alice and then Wendy.
Yeah, this is an unusual situation because it's in fact the third time that you've had an ability to have a public session with our committee. So at this point, we have opined on this and supported this plus pool idea. So where do we go from here? Is this something where EDC is actually involved with you on an agency level, or where are you going next? And what is the cost of something like this, and how does it get paid for, moving towards reality?
Yeah. It's my understanding that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that CB1 was invited to submit ideas for both the Esplanade and the Newmarket site from EDC, which is one of the reasons that we were invited here tonight. And we're happy that we have the support of the community board. We actually will be meeting with EDC soon to discuss some of these options, and we'll certainly keep the community board informed. In terms, what your other question was, cost. The initial cost estimates for the construction of the project is $20 million, and our nonprofit has been laying the foundation for fundraising for that.
Thank you.
What agency has jurisdiction over this?
That is a great question. It really depends on where it's placed. As we've been saying, there's a lot of different areas we've been exploring with the mayor's office. In this particular area, the water, it appears, is controlled by EDC.
But the Coast Guard,
Yes.
because you're a vessel.
Yes, so we
Too
will need
many
an Army Corps
agencies.
permit, a
Yeah,
Coast Guard
so
permit,
it's alphabet
DC.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, all of the above.
Yeah.
All right, Wendy and
I was just wondering if you could tell us all the different nonprofits, I know Highline is one of the models that you're looking towards, but can you share with us some of the partnership building that you've done already in terms of putting this in the water, in terms of, I think that it's who are the supporters of this outside of just people in this room?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of the Highline, Joshua David here, who's one of the co-founders of the Highline, is also on our board, and I know he's spoken to your community board before. So we do take a lot of inspiration from the Highline business model in terms of the nonprofit working with the city to develop a project, but then maintaining it afterwards and stewarding it through. We have friendships with the Waterfront Alliance and the Billion Oyster Project and a lot of the other water stewards across the city. We hope over the years we will continue to expand the kind of joint programming that we do together. In the school programs that we've been doing, we've been working with an organization called New York Sunworks, which has organizations with over 50 schools in all 5 boroughs and get curriculum into the classrooms and train the teachers. We have been working with NYSHA to provide the swim program to the low-income youth throughout the different areas in which we can acquire pool time. Our partnerships are growing. We definitely were just designers and artists who came up with an idea, and so we understand that we don't know the best way to teach people how to swim. We don't know everything about STEM, and we're not teachers, but so we're making sure that we're collaborating with the people that do know those things and can use the story of Plus Pool to do that.
Okay, let's have one more comment on this, and then we'll go back to the people speaking on behalf.
Since you're a floating pool, what happens when we have another superstorm, Sandy, or a hurricane? How do you deal with a situation like that?
Absolutely.
Which will happen.
Absolutely. Well, we, as I said, we are designed as a vessel, so it's very much like boats that weather storms and ride with them in a lot of ways. And to that end, we're actually more concerned and very much following a lot of the resiliency work that is being done along the waterfront, because we're more worried about what could hit it and actually affect our structure versus the other way around.
Okay. Okay, one more question, and then we're going to go to Raul. How much?
Oh, we intend for it to be free. It's our hope. Yeah.
And like Kara mentioned, we'll be around, so grab us.
Yeah, we're going to continue discussing all of these items.
Having us.
Thank you again. Okay, Raul, and then we have Pearl, Lulu, and Marlo.
Yeah, thank you. So I think a lot has been shared already about the project. Just wanted to openly also support it. My first time in the meeting. I've been living in the area for over 8 years now, and I moved from Mexico. I'm originally from Mexico, now a resident here in CB1 area. And as I learned about the project, what was most shocking to me is the little access that we have, one just to the beach, but also to the water. Right, I grew up close to beautiful beaches and coasts, and learning about Manhattan and being in this area really was impressive for me that we cannot actually have access to the water. So just today I wanted to share with you guys that this project is something that I've been speaking to a lot of people about what this can happen in the impact. And in our view, and the group of people that we've rallied behind the project, is actually the main thing that hits us is that we can set a big precedent, not only here in New York City, but in the US and globally, for younger generations to understand that once damage is made to the environment is pretty much not reversible, and that this should raise awareness for us to start acting differently. I actually think that this type of projects should be the projects that the Green New Deal should start funding, not only raise awareness, but also to make a big impact and a legacy to the city. Also, these type of projects, like you mentioned, the Highland, are the ones that make the city most attractive, not only here in the US, but everywhere in the world. So, big supporter, and I hope you guys make the decision and we find the ways to move forward with the next steps.
Thank you. Okay, and after these speakers, Taylor, step up.
My name is Mimi Ray Gordetsky, and my 3 children are here with me, Pearl, Lulu, and Marla Ray. And we live on the water in CB1, and we use the parks on the shorelines literally every single day, summer, winter. fall, spring. And for us, we love Plus Pool. We think it's just a hugely fascinating project in terms of design, in terms of science, and would be really excited to see it become a reality, particularly in a place so close to where we live. So my kids have all written down a couple of things that they'd like to say about Plus Pool very briefly. And they've made cool posters.
Do you want to hand them the mic? You could pull out the mic and let them speak
right.
into it.
Okay, Pearl, you first.
I like to swim because I like to feel the water. I think Plus Pool is cool because they're building a pool in the middle of the river. I want to swim in the river because it's cool to swim in a river. I like to swim because it's warm. I think Plus Pool is cool because it's not a beach and it's not a swimming pool. I want to swim in the river because you can jump.
There you go.
I like to swim because it's fun. I think Plus Pool is cool because it is a cool shape. I want to swim in the river because I'll be able to swim with the fishes.
Thank you. That was great. Thanks for coming by. We're going to try to do our best for you. Okay, and after Taylor is Ira.
Hi, my name's Taylor Chapman. I grew up in Tribeca. I'm 17 years old, so, kind of been here my whole life. And I just wanted to say that I really strongly support Plus Pool, not only because, I really want to swim in the river. I mean, I've been on swim team all my life, so I really want that opportunity. But also, I really appreciate the science aspect and the environmental aspect. I go to Bronx Science, so I'm kind of like a science kid, and the fact that it's so environmentally focused, but also will bring access to kids my age is really, really appealing to me. And I also think it's important to bring in the idea that, I'm growing up in a digital age, and having a central part, a place that we could go to that we're proud of is environmental, but also beautiful for kids my age, to pull us off our phones and, into the environment, the part of nature that we kind of have left, and having a place to fix that is really important to me. So, yeah, if we could push Plus Pool forward, I support it.
Thank you. And last speaker after Ira is Warren Green.
Hi, my name's Ira Mershenhorn. I swim in the river already. The two things I don't like are the current and the water qualities. Water quality is sometimes usually good. The current, I hate getting swept away. I have to go time it when I go in. So if I had a Plus Pool, I could swim at any time, which would be very nice.
Thank you. And we'll let you speak even though you're not on Plus Pool, huh?
No, I'm not on Plus Pool.
Okay.
What I am concerned about, though, is that while we're doing the Esplanade, I haven't heard any consideration of how to deal with another superstorm Sandy. And if you're going to renovate the Esplanade, do something such as, I would like to see a movable barrier of some sort, so that if another superstorm Sandy is coming in, that thing gets raised up and the water doesn't hit up to Pearl Street.
Thank you for that comment. Let me just say on that has been an item of frustration for all of us who are in this part of Lower Manhattan. We've worked very hard. Alice is now chairing a committee basically solely on that issue of resiliency and trying to make sure that we get resiliency. The people just north of us were fortunate. They got a good grant from the feds. We didn't get a dime. So the city is giving us general promises every now and then, but it's not amounting to any real plan. So perhaps we're going to have to gather some more meetings like this to put some more pressure on them on that issue in the months ahead.
And Paul, can I, now that the state legislature has a little slightly different complexion, it is possible that we might end up getting more money from the state because we actually got very little from anyone, but the state was like, so now you need to talk to your representatives to ask to cover us because otherwise the water will.
And Paul?
Yes.
I think it's important to say that the budget for this project and the timeline for this project is very tight on both fronts. So even though we've talked about this extensively, that we want resiliency, this budget, this timeline, resiliency, the materials will be resilient, but it will not block the river from flooding the next time. And it's too small of a project.
Or the water coming up from the bed, which is more damaging than the flood water.
That's a lengthy discussion. We'll have it at another meeting. Okay. So at this point, we've heard from all the speakers. Thank you all for your comments. And now, Diana, could you post those guidelines that we prepared? We prepared some guidelines that I think will hopefully help the committee go through the basic elements that probably...
Oh, is it your goal to have a resolution tonight?
Yes, if we can, yes.
Are we able to?
All right, so stick around.
This is, are we asking questions of the
We
presentation?
can ask questions as time goes along, or if you want to ask any questions now, you can. But I did prepare this list of things to start talking about and considering. I think a lot of them are just pretty simple, and we're just going to say yes to all of many of those items, certainly in the top section. I mean, we could have more extensive discussions on it. Obviously, we're not going into much detail here. I don't know if we want to, or if we want to leave it to the landscape architects and the designers to come up with more precise responses to these improvements. So anyway, we have the first section. I assume everyone is pretty much fine with that.
I think the first speaker made a good point about better lighting but not overbearing.
Okay, we could consider that in the resolution for sure. Okay, so why don't we go on to the second section of possible Esplanade improvements. So these are some suggestions that I've heard, others have heard over the years for this part of town and for Community Board 1 as a whole. So I don't know if these all are possible in the limited amount of space we have here, but you can read them all for yourself. The first two concern, youth. Obviously, when we designed Pexla Park, that was designed to give you another option in this area, but I think we're still interested in trying to provide, especially older kids, with additional sports options. I don't know if anyone is interested in any of these courts or...
Well, I think that the east side is kind of like the orphan of the community board. The west side has the parks. We've got two health facilities over there, and yet on this side of town we don't. There is nowhere where our children can throw a ball on this side of town. And I don't know, perhaps this will run into some of our discussion about the new market site as well, but we need some ball fields in some kind of a way down on the water. And I think, that is really important for us to consider.
Beach volleyball.
Beach ball?
Well, that's one thing.
Okay, any more discussion on that item? Go ahead, Bob.
Did you guys get a chance to look at the the fields, which the community board.
I shared it with the design team.
At Pier 25, another one is planned at Pier 26, and Battery Park City by Rector Place has they're not, you're not going to play an Olympic game on them. They're small, but they're very well utilized, and they do allow for what Paul was talking about. So I did notice, that's why I asked for the drawings, because I think this time you have dimensions on there, and I'm eyeballing that the widest spot you have, including a bikeway, is 100 feet. I might be wrong, give or take 25 feet, but so that's tight. But I would measure the fields at 25 and at Rector Place. I don't necessarily think they're that much smaller or larger than 100 feet. But again, you have other constraints. There has to be a bikeway through there, or a walkway through there. So I don't, that's for the architects to really look at and be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. I'd like to take the opportunity to ask EDC, Morgan, and you all, and I see the last word here, pavilions. Could you talk to us a little bit about the largest swatch of land that you have here that you show very well with the covered space under the FDR? This has become of concern at the community board, as you might be aware, with the recent application for a restaurant at the end of, I think it was John Street. So I'm just curious, what is the attitude towards the covered space under the FDR? What are you thinking about for that? That's about that 1,500 linear feet. I'm talking about the entire area in purple on this drawing. Okay.
We don't have a single design out at all. So right now, we're getting all this feedback to figure out what's going to be best to be placed underneath that area. So that's why we're.
Is it a landscape feature though, or is it built? Is this considered construction like architectural, or is it all considered a landscape?
So there's no plans on putting in any buildings in the area, so it's really more about open space and creating that area.
So the restaurant that you've just...
That's not us, that's Parks, and that's a Parks area, and that's specific to that area. So that was a Parks presentation, if you remember from that presentation that was given about John Street and that restaurant. So you want to speak directly with Parks about that and ask about that specific location. It's not EDC.
Oh, I thought they said they leased it from you. So to your knowledge, EDC isn't planning any other pavilion-like structure under the FDR that you're in?
No, there are no plans for that. And with regards to this project, there are no plans on that.
But that is your land, isn't it?
Not that specific spot that you're talking about. With regards to that building, no, that's not our area. There's an MOU,
land north of that.
There's an MOU between Parks and EDC with regards to that particular site, but that's how.
The land north of that, Morgan.
The land north of that, from which area do we?
Yeah, where we usually have the people that selling the T-shirts and the other stuff under the FDR drive.
I'd have to find out exactly which streets and area you're talking about.
By Pier 16.
By Pier 16.
Yeah,
again, like I said, I don't have the answer.
I mean, I'm asking.
We'll have to take you for a walk.
I'm not asking.
Happy to do that.
Yeah, excuse me. I want to make a point. I'm not asking it to be defensive. I'm asking it so because you're asking the public to give you ideas to consider. What would you like to see? And so I'm trying to sort of assess for us all what are the parameters for these ideas. Are we talking about a community center? Well, that's a built architectural piece versus landscape architects have been engaged. So it's difficult.
Could I just interject one thing? It's also very relevant because in 2007, the city put out a document for the East River Waterfront that had pavilions as a major element of their proposal. And so this is a turnaround. Now you're saying you don't want them there anymore.
Again, it depends on the area and what the impact would be and the location, where that's at. I don't know specifically where that would be located.
I would say it's just south of the Brooklyn Bridge.
So you're saying, just to get this clear,
in the 1,500 feet, linear feet.
You're not considering pavilions in the area that we're studying. Is that what we're getting from you?
Where the purple is.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
All right, then because I did add that to our discussion list, I guess we don't have to have much of a discussion on that. Okay, let's move along. We covered some of the sports activities. Artwork. How do people consider that a priority? Do people want artwork?
Like sculptures, statues?
Yeah, I guess, I don't know, I just threw it out there. Yes.
I ask an overarching question, and that is with the EDC or whomever, what have you done in the way of demographics, both present and forecasted? We live in an area where we're constantly besieged, if you will, by development. Some that's been completed, some is in the eye of the beholder. But what it's impacting is through the question, it's families, community, and with that comes responsibility. And I would like to know the demographics by which you have done your forecasting work in trying to develop for 20 years, not 1 year or 3-year construction. Please.
Sure. What do you mean by demographics? Like the type of people in the area, what's been happening in terms of population changes and so on? So
all of those.
Yeah, I don't have a direct answer on that, but one of the things that we look really closely at is looking at the needs from community district need statements that come out from community boards as well. We do a lot of research and talking with elected officials about the projects that are happening in the area, and then also what is the general situation in terms of change of patterns of population that's here, as well as specifically changes of the environment that's here as well too. So if we look at a case like Superstorm Sandy and how much that changes the way that we think about resiliency, or how we change about the way we think about open space, and being able to create some form of resiliency that allows for open space in the area for people to be able to join year-round, but how do you protect those areas as closely as possible? That's why in our presentation, which isn't up as well too, yes, it does discuss about floodable materials and allowing for those materials to be able to be there so people can actually take advantage of it. But you know, there is a huge importance with regards to ensuring that these communities have open space that's located in the area that people could use year-round and have some close proximity or access towards the waterfront that's in their area.
So you anticipate growth in this?
I'm not a population expert. I'm just a government communication person, community relations person, but at the same time, just based on the number of responses that we've received from the survey, the 700 plus people that we've heard from, we anticipate there's definitely a huge interest in terms of how people can have connection to the waterfront, and that's the purpose of this project.
Okay. One last question. Go ahead.
I have rather a comment rather than a question. I just want to bring everybody back to the results of the survey that we kind of started with, right? And what those folks said, and I'm wholeheartedly behind that, is that we want open space, right? People are looking to be outdoors. People want to be active. That was number one attribute. And people are not asking for buildings or food or shopping, right? Nobody said, make shopping available to us. That's so important to have shopping right on the river, right? We have enough shopping. We have plenty of restaurants. And with all due respect to community center, it could be put someplace else. We want to have open space. We want to be able to exercise on the water, which is extremely healthy. And this exercise can take, there's an outdoor gym. I wish we had more of that type of structures. It's right behind Catherine's Sleep. And somebody recently had amazing insight to put tables in the middle of this space that had this soft covering for like floor exercises. So now that people eat there, they throw garbage. In the middle of this outdoor gym, there are bottles, there is all kinds of garbage. So, again, if you go back to the survey, people didn't say, make sure we can eat there, right? Make sure we can shop. That's not what people said.
Well, that's the purpose of tonight. And believe me, I listed all these things not because we want to recommend all of them. Believe me, I think we should recommend just a very few number of our specific priorities because it's not a large space. But I'm just throwing out, all the ideas so just in case you forgot something. But I think, we're going to try to come to a consensus here as we continue to go down this list. All right.
I just want to express my feeling about the artwork. We have a unique and spectacular opportunity to view the river, to the view corridors, to the antique buildings, the beautiful ships, the Brooklyn Bridge, which as far as I'm concerned is a monumental public work of art. And I was in the art business for 10 years, public art business, and I think public art can have a very mixed result. And I think in this particular situation, it wouldn't add anything to the beauty of what's already there, no matter what kind of art.
I don't think we're hearing that that's a priority for anyone.
That's
Okay,
well
so
said.
let's keep moving along.
Mixed result.
Okay, so other items on the list, is there anything else that stands out? I don't think this group is probably looking for a lot of new restaurants, probably. Public market, community center? No. Okay, what about boating and piers?
Yes.
Well, what about?
Okay.
Yeah, anything that's water dependent is
Could we
crucial.
move is that the end of the list? Okay. Okay, so why don't we get into the discussion about access to the water and boating? So, just before I call on you, let me just introduce that, as I said, we have an issue with the beach. This board is on record saying we want this beach built. We have to probably have some discussion about how open we want it to be. We heard from some speakers saying just let it be completely open. I know I've heard from other people saying that's too dangerous, so we could kick that around if we want to. And then we should talk about the issue of boating and what kinds of boats we want to make access to. I don't know, is that something that you would be able to cover because you said you only go to the bulkhead?
Yeah, they only go up to the bulkhead, but I think this is a really important discussion to have as well too. How much is open? How much is boating?
Okay.
And it's also not just a discussion within CB1. There's also keeping in mind CB3 as well. Yeah, this microphone's not working.
It turned off?
I think it did. I don't know. It doesn't like me for some reason. But
There's a switch on it, Morgan.
yeah, I got the switch on. It's okay. I'll just speak really loud. Yeah, I mean, a part of that has to be about, we're definitely interested in hearing about what's the level of openness that people are discussing and saying within the community, but also keeping in mind, as well as boating and things of that nature, there's lots of different opinions and thoughts on this, especially from the community and representatives as well. But furthermore, considering the fact that this is not just a CB1 project, it's also CB3, it's a shared area between that entire Esplanade project as well. But again, our focus here is really about the bulkhead and going up to the bulkhead, not exactly there's a bit about the access into the beach, but then once you're on the beach, then that steps outside the confines of the project.
But your project could include access points.
Yeah, could, yeah.
Yeah, the bulkhead would be.
Okay, let's go around the table. Did you want to say something?
It will.
Thank you.
I don't know, do you need the mic?
No, I don't think so. Just on the issue of maritime use of the waterfront, I think for the entire extent of this project, in its entire length, not just the one that we're discussing tonight, I see no facilities to put a boat. Now, that doesn't mean you necessarily have to use them, but it is in fact into the bulkhead that they have to be designed. And doing that before the fact rather than after is when it has to be done. So what I'm suggesting is there should be some stretches along the Esplanade where those facilities are built in. The decision to use them or who should use them is a second decision, but the decision to include them should be made now ahead of time.
Okay. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, the beach picture. So, the reality, you're up to here, right? Anything past here?
Yep. Outside the project.
So what agency or agencies have authority over this?
I mean, it would still be EDC.
It's still be EDC.
Just the project itself.
All right. So same agency. All right. So I think we're on record on this that we just bolster our whereas with regards to this for this resolution to say, and I wrote it. Tell me if anyone disagrees. Unfeathered and unmanaged access to Brooklyn Bridge Beach during regular park hours as it exists across the river in Dumbo and in Pier 4.
Yeah. Is that the consensus from everyone on this committee? All right, Joe, go ahead.
I have a question of
supply and demand. The beach is small and the demand's gonna be great because there are 4 high rises closest to that beach. So what do? We just let it open access and don't have any
Well,
guidelines?
there are a couple of possibilities that
I'd like
at least
to
have,
know.
there are a couple of possibilities that I thought of. I don't know if they're willing to do this. One is the Downtown Boathouse, which wants some activity there. Maybe they will take a role in terms of trying to manage that space. And the other group that I thought of possibly is this Plus Pool, because if they're going to be right near it, maybe they could have staff to check on it. Again, these are very preliminary thoughts.
Well, the Plus Pool, they say they have a way of limiting to their capacity. We have no way of limiting capacity
All right.
of the beach.
Joe,
And that's
So what?
an open, possible problem.
Joe, the thing is, that's step 2. Step 1 is to actually get them to say, yes, we'll have unfeathered access. Then step 2 is, okay, who's gonna manage it, if there is managing, but they haven't said yes yet, that's the problem.
Paul?
Go ahead.
He hasn't said yes.
Yeah, I would be remiss, we had several presentations from EDC and a study that was done not only on access to the beach, but access to the water. And we had some troubling information about the presence of rebar, the presence of 2 sewers on either side of the location, all right, and the currents, which I know our ship folks know all about. My concern here is, and I do want access to the beach. I do think we should have open access. But my concern is what then happens with people jumping in the water?
Paul,
What?
our previous resolution addressed that as access but no swimming.
Right, but how do you, if it's
I don't
free
know
and
how you
open
enforce it.
access,
I don't
who
know how you
enforces that,
Mark
Mark?
tells you, you
I
can
mean,
go
how do they enforce it on the other side of the river?
Yes, that is the big
Well-
That's the thing,
On the
so-
other side of the
I
river,
can
there's
jump in
no.
this river and.
I can tell you what, well, hold on a second.
Bob?
At the Gansport Pier in Hudson
on,
River
hold
Park,
on.
there is a
I'll
long
call on you
discussion
next.
now about get-downs to the water. There are no get-downs to the water in Hudson River Park. They're discussing it at Gansport. I can tell you in Portugal, they have, in Lisbon, they have the same situation where they have steps leading up to the water, they have currents.
Amsterdam.
But the city folks here, I think we live in a much more litigious society, and so I would let see what the city says. You can put some steps down to the sand, out to the ocean, but I'm telling you that the Hudson River Park has not signed on to that either, and I would follow those discussions carefully, because there is even more beach in Gansport than there is here, and I haven't heard clearly that there's going to be they have not determined what they see as a get down to the water. So
The lawyers will always say no because one idiot might jump in the water.
I'm just telling you.
I'm telling you.
I understand. I'm not making a judgment. I'm just telling you what the
I know.
discussion's going on as the representative. From
Okay,
Hudson.
hold on. Is that Maggie in the back?
Oh, yeah. At Brooklyn Bridge Beach, nobody's jumped in the water and caused a big accident. So I don't think there's any reason to expect that anybody would do so on the Manhattan side either. So I think we can move on from that topic.
Okay.
That's fine.
All right, so let's do that.
That's fine, right? Unfeathered access into the resolution.
A good point of
Let you
information.
go home.
Yeah.
Check it.
The Upper West Side, Riverside Park, the Hudson River is lined with what's called riprap. It's just a layer of rock for a couple of miles. People climb out on that all the
As
time.
we did as kids.
Yeah, and as adults.
Wow.
And
There you
so
go.
far as I know, the only incident has been that suicide.
Okay.
People
I
jump
think-
in off the pier at the
Right.
Hudson
I
River
mean,
Park.
I think we got through the
It doesn't prove to
beach.
be a hazard.
We can put a sign up saying no swimming.
It's in in the resolution, our previous resolution has that.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay, yes,
So we're covered.
okay.
Covered.
And I think we could quickly move through plus pool because we've already, there's support for that here, and I don't think we need to really get into any more discussion on that. And we had, I don't know if we did a resolution. All right, but in any event, we're going to incorporate it into these recommendations. Okay, so let's keep moving.
Let's keep this.
Maintenance and management. The first issue on the survey results was poor maintenance, as you saw. So one of the things that I've been advocating for, and I think is necessary, is to create a new entity to manage and maintain the East River Esplanade. That includes community representation. Not too much different than Hudson River Park has or Brooklyn Bridge Park has. So instead of having this conglomerate of city agencies doing it and frankly not doing very well and probably not wanting to do it, we need to set up an entity to oversee that waterfront and to manage it because there are issues. We discussed them. Is that something that has support among the committee?
East River Trust.
I think while they're here, we should ask Plus Pool how much they want to take on or not take on when it comes to this question.
Well, I don't think they need to be the manager of the waterfront.
Well, we should just ask them while they're here.
All right, if you want to.
Yeah, but that's not what you're suggesting.
No, I would certainly want them to probably participate on the board of any entity that we do set up, but I don't think they would, you know, I think at this point, let's try to conclude whether this is something that we can include.
There are two levels of work that can be done on this level. There's something called an advisory council, which Friends of Hudson River Park, I'm sorry, take that back, rewind, Bob. Friends, an advisory council to the Hudson River Park. So this would be an advisory council to like 3 or 4 agencies. I'm not sure that works. Then you could have its own entity for the management, but it's not as large a project. There are constraints with both models. It's not as large a space or a project as Hudson River Park, as Friends of Brooklyn Bridge Park.
Well,
and so
this entity would probably cover the East River going
Yeah,
beyond
north.
Board One.
Yeah.
So
and down
this-
and down to the and down to the
and I know Board Three is also considering
Down
this.
to the
so a Friends of would work the best if I could.
Down
A
to
Friends
the
of
battery.
No, I think an entity.
an entity. Yes, Friends of is an entity.
So who
No, I
creates that?
mean something like Hudson River Park Trust.
Or well, that's a quasi-governmental authority.
Yes, that's what I'm
But
proposing.
Friends of Hudson River Park is a separate.
No, I mean, maybe that would come about at some point as
Yeah.
well, but that's not what I'm suggesting.
Okay, I got it. I got it.
What?
So that's
Who
clear.
creates the trust?
I think the community would have to come together. This has been discussed before, let me tell
It would
you.
have-
There have been, I participated in a forum that took place years ago where people, including Carl Weisbrod and leaders of this community, all came together and recommended just that. This was
Okay.
one of the key recommendations of how to improve this neck of the woods. This was probably 15 years ago or more. So
that's
the
the
point
entity. I
is
got it.
that this is not a new idea. This is not an easy lift either. I'm not suggesting that, but I think we have to put it out there, and I think we have to say that is the best solution, you know, going forward.
Paul,
And now is the time to do it when they're
Right.
doing these improvements.
Paul, sometimes these friends of things sometimes become these quasi-agencies onto their own and wind up not including the public as well. I mean, I saw Friends of Hudson River Park, that thing became some kind of
I'm
monstrosity.
not proposing.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm not saying you're opposing, I'm just putting it out there. You know, where they cared more about fundraisers than, you know, what was going on in the park. We can't have that.
I'd like to make a recommendation, which is to maybe, I think we're tackling a lot of issues. Perhaps we talk about the governance or the process of how this all may come to pass as a separate issue, and not to lose sight of the issue at hand, which is the actual physical reality of what we were presented with today, and making it two separate. I don't think I would join them, because I think we are already dealing with a lot, and to find out, to discuss what in fact could be in terms of the actual 1,500 square feet of property, and then to talk about how it would be, in fact, the process of governing it seems like two very different things, and might get confusing with trying to do the both in the same resolution. Just a thought.
Paul's point is you gotta get it
Separate them.
early, though.
Well, I appreciate that,
would-
maybe a mention of it,
all
but I
right,
think we could tackle
let's-
both very successfully.
Let's try to wrap this discussion up. So how many people would support what I'm suggesting, putting in an entity or recommending such an entity? How many of this group?
But
One,
can
two,
we
three.
I
include,
don't know what it is yet.
It's too
Or
big.
more.
can we include that
You're not gonna
entity?
get it anyway, you might as well.
What?
Yeah, it's good for a lot you're not gonna
Yes.
get.
So,
Could we include that entity, once, once the idea comes about, that it be approved by us or reviewed by us before it's
Of course, of
implemented?
course.
Include that in the resolution?
I mean, yes.
I mean, I don't wanna assume it.
Could you give an example of exactly what exists in the city like it?
Yeah, I
It's
can.
not the trust, give us
Well,
one.
let me just say something, the
Yeah.
trusts board, see, you got a
That's
bunch
a
of,
government,
you
yeah.
got a bunch of, it's not government, you got a bunch of, different entities here, you got the Parks Department, you got EDC, you got, I don't know, this, so, on the trust board, you have the Parks Department, you have the DOT, you have the DOE, state preservation, and so you have the commissioners of those, plus you have the borough president and the council people adding members to the Hudson River Park Trust.
Who are just
And-
people who live in the community.
Yeah, they who are just people who live in the community. So you have the governmental entities for coordination.
So that's what you're presenting.
And the same model is also, and Daniel Squadron was very much in favor of this, and the same entity is existing at Governor's Island. The mayors and they all appoint people from different agencies for coordination, and then they appoint members of the community board to sit on that board. And it seems to work. It is, I'll give Mark his due, it is sometimes a little expensive, for lack of a better word.
Okay.
This could also require legislation. It's a very complex process in terms of, depending upon what it is that what you end up with, how representative is it, how accountable is it to the community, all of those things have to be addressed.
Right.
I actually tend to think that we should we want it to be clean, maintained. I think we should come back to that as a separate question as to how we do that. I think it requires some deeper explanation, deeper thought, in my view.
It does, for sure, but I think just throwing the idea out there that we want something along those lines, subject to additional discussion.
It doesn't hurt to ask for community representation, because the elected officials get a lot of play into that.
Michael, go ahead.
They're already putting the money into this.
Concept, Paul?
The idea is to get the governance away from EDC.
Wow, not within the room, you don't want to say that.
I just said
I don't know that they would
They would
mind
be
that
involved.
much.
And they could be one of the stakeholders.
Maybe they don't want to.
Do we
want to recognize I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
What Brooklyn Bridge Park does, what Governor's Island does, which is different than what HRPT does, because that's a state authority. The rest are city authorities. Is a local development corporation. And then they have all the stakeholders involved in that LDC. And that's the underlying premise behind the Brooklyn Bridge Park and Governor's Island, whatever they call it. So to create, for lack of a better word, an East River Trust that involved all the stakeholders to do the governance on the water, and to make, get Community Board 3 involved, make it from here, from the Battery all the way up to 14th Street or something, makes a whole lot of sense, and I would encourage my fellow board members to
Perhaps
agree
we
with
can,
Paul.
cite those
That's good.
examples,
That's a good
Brooklyn
explanation.
Bridge Park and Governor's Island as examples of where this has been done.
Good idea.
authorities such as Hudson River Park Trust and Brooklyn Bridge Park both have economic engines behind them that are supporting them through infinitum, through land leases and different things. Like for instance, Hudson River Park Trust is doing that Google Pier at Pier 57 at 17th Street. There's a lot of leasing and different cooperative projects they're doing with the private sector and with residential development or whatever the fact may be to keep a money flow going into those parks to provide that support. So the EDC is in the same situation. They're basically getting their income stream to support this stuff off the parking revenue that's underneath the bridge or underneath the viaducts. And basically every development project that happens underneath there is cutting off their income stream because they're cutting off the parking, which is how they're funding any type of maintenance. So whatever happens needs to have a financial foundation behind it. So it needs thought. You really
No
have to-
disagreement on that. No, this is going to take a lot of work to put together. I'm not saying, snap your fingers and it's done.
An LDC captures the local revenue, so the rent that Howard Hughes pays might go to that LDC to finance, and Howard Hughes had a deal with the city, Euler, where they put $210,000 a year to fix to maintain the Esplanade, which is peanuts, obviously, in the big picture. So this can work, and this is the structure that you can use. And right now, it's just conceptual. So I would recommend that you include it in your proposal, and then you can work out the details later.
All right, one more time. Let's bring this to a conclusion. How many would support some language in here recommending that?
Could we just say what it is that we're recommending? Exactly.
We're recommending
Exploration would be a good word.
an LDC type organization to manage the waterfront that needs to be put together with the input, substantial input from boards 1 and 3.
Research and consideration.
So something like Brooklyn Bridge Conservancy?
And do you want to
Not a
cite the
conservancy.
geographic boundaries?
No.
You want to say from the Battery to 14th Street?
I think if we say boards 1 and 3, that's basically saying that. We could say that if that's going to bring you on board, fine. Okay.
That sounds good.
Okay, so I think we have now reached some consensus on this. Fine. Let's keep moving then, because we still have more to go through. Let's see. Okay, New Market Building. New Market Building is obviously not really a piece of the Esplanade, but,
Do we do a resolution?
well, let's talk about, we have to do a resolution for sure. So I think we have the elements of a resolution. Diana, I think you've been taking notes, I hope. Okay, good.
We voted?
I'm sorry, what
As always,
is
thank
the resolution on?
The resolution is going to be on recommending what
Sorry.
type of improvements we'd like to see in the East River Esplanade. And we're going to give some general ideas, including obviously the beach and plus pool. I think there was consensus for examining ball fields and boat docks. So
Well, I'd like
there
to-
were certain elements that this committee agreed to.
Okay.
And we'll go through it one more time when we come to a vote. But that was what the nature, that's what I'm trying to do, bring everyone together. I should point out that EDC has indicated that this is a very confined time frame for this project. So I don't know that we have till next month. If we want to have some input into this, if we wait till next month, they may be going ahead and doing their design without our input. So I think it's in our interest to just get this done tonight. I know it's not simple, I know it's a lot I'm throwing out, but I think it's in our interest ultimately. There will be future meetings and we will be able to discuss all of these issues further. We're not resolving everything. Okay, having said that, EDC has also indicated to us, everyone knows what the New Market Building is. It's one of the old Seaport buildings. It's the one closest to the old Fish Market buildings, the one closest to the Brooklyn Bridge that is scheduled for demolition. So that's a fait accompli. Now, what's not determined is what is going to replace that building. And EDC has actually asked our board for some input into what we would like to see. Is that not accurate?
We're open to listening and hearing what that feedback
I
is.
think you did say that at one of our working group meetings. Okay.
You got to say one of many.
Yes.
Okay.
Paul, I-
Having said that, I think we have an opportunity here to put in some recommendations for that site. If anyone has any ideas, maybe that is not such an urgent need as the rest of this project. So we could hypothetically, I think, put that discussion off because you're not making any decisions on that right around the corner. So if we have input, let's have a short discussion on that. If people want to make some recommendations, that's fine. But that's one that I think we could put off till a future meeting and have additional discussion.
I have a question. Morgan, at our last meeting, I asked you whether the city had the money to repair the pier. We've been given reports from EDC that the pier is falling down, all right? So we're talking about what we want to see on the pier. We first need to have a pier, all right? So what's the plan to replace the pier? So, because I'd love to see ball fields there,
Underneath the market building?
The market building is going to be demolished and taken away.
The platform, the pilings were wood, they were then encased in concrete, they're rotted from the inside out, according to the reports that we got from EDC.
Okay, let him respond.
Yeah, sure. I mean, so you said everything correctly. There's impact to the pilings that are underneath that area, there's impact to the building, and hence the purpose of the demolition. We do not have any funding allocated or any plans specifically for that specific area. There's nothing that's out right now at all. So that's what I know about that specific site. But we understand that the community has a lot of interest in terms of discussing what the future of that site is. There's been Seaport working group meetings that have involved elected officials and other community members, some in this room, as well as part of those discussions. So that's where it's at.
Okay, so we need to figure out how we're gonna have a pier so we can put stuff on it. And that being said, let's assume that's going to be worked out. So then, Paul, I guess we can have some suggestions as to what else we might see on that new pier?
We could.
Actually, it's very interesting the way you put that, because when you said we need a pier to put stuff on it, my first thought was, oh, that would be a boat, right? Yeah. But it's not what you're thinking.
Right,
But they're not mutually exclusive.
Or defend it.
Absolutely. That's another idea.
That's an idea.
Diana, maybe you could post that thing that the city recommended. This is not coming from me or anything. The city recommended a use for that space back in 2007. So we could just see what they were thinking back then.
What's the size of the space, Paul?
So it's page 52, 53.
Morgan, the size of that space, do you happen to know that up there?
I don't have that on hand, but I'm happy to bring that up.
200 by 100.
What?
200 by 100?
Okay.
20,000.
Yeah.
20,000.
Footprint is 20,000.
Just, again, we don't have to spend much time on this, but this is, if you see that glass building, that was what the city had proposed back in 2007 as something that we might want to consider as a community facility and a transparent small building. Again, I'm not necessarily supporting that, but it's an idea that we might want to consider.
Yeah.
Okay.
That also is the old Pier 17.
Well,
Well,
yeah, it goes back to 2007.
Are you open for recommendations now for this? Or
Yeah,
not?
we could do that, but again, I probably,
Premature.
we might not be able to conclude this discussion, but let's start it, and that was what was on the agenda to begin the discussion, a preliminary discussion.
I'd like a modern library,
A library, fine,
modern one.
okay. New marks. Okay, let's keep going. Wendy?
So, one of the things I'm really excited about, everyone knows that the first time I heard about Plus Pool, I'm really excited about this. And I am the strongest supporter I could possibly be about Plus Pool. And I want to make it clear that the only way to do this is to have a locker room. And, you know, my kids all swam at Bob's Pool, and they all are, you know, products of that swim team, and one of them came and spoke today. So that might be the site that we could have a locker room, and then maybe that is some sort of, I mean, I know it's not a, you know, we can't say Manhattan Use, you know, branch, but it's one of the things that it's a logical place to have a community center type place, because we have to have a locker room, and you could make it into an educational facility as well, and it doesn't have to be giant. It could be really welcoming, and it could be one of those places that, you know, I don't care what it looks like, but that's the logical place to put it. You know, I think a floating bathroom doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It needs to be on the land, and I don't know if there's enough room under the bridge, but that's the logical place. So I don't know, I mean, and it doesn't have to just stop with a locker room. It could be a gym above it. It could be a soccer field above it. It could be, I mean, there are a lot smarter people than I am, but I have 3 kids, and if I lived on that side, they'd be there every day. They'd be in the water, and then we'd be in the locker rooms, and then we'd, you know, go get a shower and go to the next thing. So that's what I would vote for myself.
Yeah, rooftop recreation
Yeah,
spaces
exactly.
exist around the city nowadays. Okay, let's keep going. A few comments from the audience. All right, go ahead. Yeah, that's it.
Earlier, when you were talking about the space, and that's very interesting what she just brought up, because now I'm thinking you could have your basketball courts or your other things, roof access, green roof, there's a lot of things that could be. I was going to propose that in some of those spaces, it's sort of flexible spacing. We don't have a ton of space. I think it would be nice if there was areas that you want to do yoga, you want to have, you know, the kids for recycling, that you know, just space that you could multi-purpose, not dedicated to just.
I'd like to ask a question of EDC. Morgan, has there ever been a RFP or the idea of a public competition to consider the use of that site?
There hasn't been
And would that be
anything.
something that would be useful potentially within the architectural and landscape community to offer up a competition, a public competition like the old days, or even like you see sometimes in European cities where you really start to have a real discussion among professionals about, and the community, of course, about what could be?
Depends on the site and location. We do a lot of RFPs all the time at EDC, and we do public competitions still to this day at EDC. So it really depends on the site and what the funding structure looks like for that site.
Would that be something you might consider?
That's a possibility, yeah.
There was a proposal for an indoor soccer field on that site, and I believe that entity was also willing to fix the pier. But that, I know it got to the borough president. I don't know if that got to you guys, ADC.
I think the community board should consider the support of a public design competition on that. I don't think it would be a bad idea to sort of try to really galvanize a lot of thinking on it.
Okay, we have a lot of speakers, and I want to try to get through this because we do have another issue that could take a little bit of time after this. So let's try to keep everyone to brief comments or questions. All right. Let's go through some people who haven't spoken, and then I'll come back to you.
Okay. One thing I haven't seen is any green space. You know, along the west side, everybody keeps pointing to is just an open lawn and grass. I think that space would be great for things like yoga, for somebody to take a soccer ball, throw a football, like somebody mentioned. We don't have enough greenery on this east side, so I think that site should stay with grass, maybe some trees or whatever, but we don't need to erect another building.
Okay.
I'm all for bathrooms.
Okay, let's keep going. Go ahead.
I think that this community needs a school, and that's another consideration.
Who's saying that? School.
Warren Green. Okay, thank you.
I just, before I talk about this particular pier, I just wanted to say that when you're talking about plantings, make sure that the plantings are saltwater resistant. I I know that everybody's considered that, but nevertheless, it should be built into the requirement. Regarding this pier, a little bit of a reality check. We've been told that the pier itself is unsafe, which means that nothing can be built on it until it's made safe. Who knows where the money is going to come up on this thing? To talk about it now, where something might be built in the next generation, where other people will then have different demands, I think is a little bit strange. If Plus Pool is going to be requisite to have a locker room built on this space, Plus Pool is not going to get done. This money is not going to be in the next 10 years, and that's for certain.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, now I'd like to see some type of building with community activity. I'm not exactly sure what should be inside, but the roof should definitely be usable for an open space, for ball fields, for a soccer field, something like that. And also, around the outside of the building should definitely be moorings where visiting ships can dock, because that's something we're really lacking right now. And to bring back an aspect of the street of ships is extremely important, and I think we have the opportunity to do that on that site.
Okay, a couple more.
As I hear everyone's suggestions, which I think are all good, I think one of the things that needs to be put into the design, and I'm sure there are architects in the city that can do it, is to have a multi-purpose and flexible space, because what we might need now may not be what we need 30 years from now, plus the environmental concerns. And I like what Paul said about reinforcing that this area became successful because of the seaport throughout its history. And I think the South Street Seaport keeps getting diminished each year. So I think we need to have a little blend of the historical preservation with the practicality of the community needs, especially with growing families. And I would also like to see the green market, or some kind of green market return, maybe on the lower level. And there had been a proposal years ago that unfortunately I think just got diminished because of developers. And I don't see that you have to have just one thing, but perhaps a blend.
Thank you. Okay, let's do the last three. Okay, Maggie, go ahead.
Something that didn't come up on the Esplanade, but maybe can come up here is restrooms. We need more restrooms.
Restrooms.
Oh.
Yep.
I guess.
Aren't there restrooms in the seaport?
Yes.
Okay, we don't have to resolve all the issues. Go ahead.
Paul, I'm not trying to be paranoid, but there has to be funding to this somewhere. I'm just afraid, are we going to invite a developer in there to sort of fund the price of fixing up the pier so we can build something at the cost of having another development, possibly a high-rise?
Well, I could remind you that not that long ago, there was an uprising from the community against a 30-story building at that very site. So I and EDC and Howard Hughes both withdrew that proposal. So hopefully they won't just hit us with the exact same thing after they went through that. I can't say what they're going to do, but.
You're not just saying on that location, you're saying as a give back for some other thing obstructing our views and whatnot, right? I mean, I think he's saying we don't want that to turn into the give back to the community.
Right, no give back.
Either or, either build on it or.
Who owns that site?
All right, let's try to wrap up the discussion and bring this and do a vote at least on the Esplanade entity. Go ahead.
I think there are two things to consider. One is, as David just said, who owns this site. We're happy to hear Morgan Jones say that EDC controls the site, which is I think what you said? Yep. And you said this publicly a couple of times. The city controls the site. So I would like to recommend that you take Alice's suggestion and maybe form a task force on the community board to put together an RFP or something to create a charrette so that we can have public discussion of what could take place there, because there are lots of different very good ideas. That's number one. And number two is, assuming that we keep a low-scale building, there are air rights above that building. If those air rights are owned by the public, it might be possible to transfer those air rights out of the historic district, and those air rights have tremendous value, and they could fund the museum and everything they want to do, and they could fund all sorts of things that an East River Trust wanted to do. So I think that it's a big question, but I think that we're going in the right direction.
The city has said it won't do that, Michael.
Well,
They will not
we're
transfer
not
the
going to
air
be
rights
confined by what
out
the
of
city may be
historical
saying.
district.
Right.
Yes,
They may change their mind.
yeah, and we're going to have a lot more discussion on that issue at other meetings.
I know we're trying.
Okay, I think one last comment, David?
No.
Oh, we're done? Oh,
My
Bob.
question
Paul, I
was,
just want to talk about linkages again, and the last couple of comments were about, I don't see how it gets done without some sort of, what did you call it, bribe? I don't call it a bribe, I think that's called development, but that's a matter of opinion. But is there linkage to the 250 Water, I remember something thinking there was linkage to 250 Water Street, and the development there.
There's going to be plenty of discussion on that, including another meeting in this very room on Monday night, so anyone who's interested in 250 Water Street and all those issues should come back here if they want to come to a meeting on that on Monday night. Okay, having said that, let me try to bring this to a vote and some consensus. All right, so we need a resolution on the Esplanade for
Oh, on the
sure.
Esplanade, yes, but not on.
I think we might want to defer on the market. Is that the, I think
you can.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we're going to just vote on the Esplanade. I think we had a good initial discussion on the market, and we should discuss your ideas about the charrette and public design competition. I think those are all good ideas. I like some of the ideas about that came out. But let's take that up later. Okay, so let's try to finalize a resolution on the Esplanade. Okay.
Can I make a suggestion on the Esplanade resolution that one of the things I think this woman in the corner brought up is you've done a survey, I mean, albeit with 737 people, if I'm counting right, but you did do a survey. So why not use that and have our resolution point to the survey results as the place we want to go, because that we are representing the public. This was a public survey, and much of this information I think is very helpful to, I assume, to the designers. So, and rather than get too specific with an art object here and a bench there, we should probably talk about more vegetation, improved lighting, pedestrian pathway.
No, that's
view
exactly what I
corridors.
want to
So
do. I
would-
don't want to
yeah,
go
but I
into
would use
details.
this specific, part as a basis for
Well,
which to.
that and the items that we put together in our discussion. All right, so let's get through it. This is what I have. And Diana, you help because you may have better notes than I do. Okay, so we all agreed we should point out the issue of lighting and that we want, I don't know.
Better lighting, but not overbearing.
How's that? Perfect. Okay. Okay.
No third degree.
Okay.
No suntan.
We talked about, we're going to restate our support for the beach, open access, no swimming.
Yeah, I'll forward the language to Diana.
Fine.
Okay, let's keep going. Plus pool, I don't know that there's much more to be said. We support Plus Pool. We would recommend that we would greatly love them to relocate down here, and we'd love to work with them moving forward.
Can I just ask one question on that? And I'm fully on board with Plus Pool. Do we have thoughts on the wording that linked Plus Pool specifically to the Brooklyn Bridge Esplanade, which has very defined parameters in terms of budget, in terms of time frame? Are we saying it's a prerequisite to this? Are we saying it's...
My understanding is I'm sure Plus Pool would love to get government funding, but I think they're trying to raise the money themselves to pay for this project. So I don't think they're looking to dip into this $21 million to make their project happen.
They're
So
also beyond the
What?
bulkhead.
There's only so much money to do that project itself.
So I don't think that's gonna be too much of a
It's a
problem.
matter of design access to you
Right.
with Plus Pool.
That's what I'm trying to understand. What is there an ask?
So we're
I
gonna be talking
think
with Plus
we-
Pool very soon about what
Right,
they
but
do
that's,
as well, too.
it's beyond the bulkhead, so it really is not your,
I don't know exactly
the
the full extent
Esplanade.
of what Plus Pool.
Okay, so we need language that would say something to
know.
the effect that
Access.
the design of the Esplanade needs to take
Provide-
into account and provide access to Plus Pool, and we
consider
need to
access.
work with them
That
on
is.
their needs
Consider,
for
consider.
other
I'm not saying it
facilities.
needs to, I'd say consider, needs to consider it. We don't know what it is, we don't have enough information to say.
Everything will come later.
Right.
They're gonna run out.
All right, okay. All right. Voting docks was something that I think there was a lot of support for, so we should recommend that there be additional boat docks created along wherever practical.
Can we include the words water-dependent uses in the?
yeah, and the bulkheads.
Yes.
Could be anything.
Okay,
Is that okay, Paul?
How are you guys defining voting?
I don't think we are. Should, I mean, yes, boating takes in,
Takes in power boats as well as
yes,
human
so do you
power.
suggest
But not
we
the
limit
Queen
it
Mary.
to non-motorboats?
To non-powered voting.
How does the committee feel about that? Obviously, there are people who own boats who
I
probably
don't
love
know.
slips.
It's like that's too.
I'm not taking a position, I'm
That's
just
too,
saying there is
well,
another
It's
side
too
to it.
specific for this resolution.
Unless you want horn blower.
For this resolution, right.
For this resolution, it's too
Motorboats or no
specific.
motorboats?
Yes, yes.
No, let's not have that debate now.
It's all the ferry service.
Excuse me, do the vintage boats use motor?
They may.
They have to,
Then
Pioneer does, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
Let's not have.
Maybe what we could say is including certain areas that are restricted to non-motorized boats. How about that? So that, you know, a group like the boathouse could have a space.
Isn't this project, pretty much, I mean, why are we going beyond the bulkhead in terms of?
We're not, it's at the
Because
bulkhead.
at the bulkhead,
It's
they'd
a
have to-
place
Docking.
for the ship to tie up.
bulkhead?
Docking.
Right.
No.
It's docking, it's tying up.
But does this
Right.
project address the
Hitching
bulkhead in any
posts,
way?
is that the idea?
Yes, the project comes up to the bulkhead. Do you guys have input into the bulkhead itself?
Yeah, so we're not altering, we're not reconstructing the bulkhead, we're replacing the railing.
See, exactly. It's not
So,
strong enough.
but that doesn't mean we couldn't explore tie-ups or things in
Right.
that.
It's like a
Right.
hitching
I mean,
post.
Right, they'll explore
So
time.
tight.
Well, for example, the railing itself, if you're going to put a boat there, has to be removable. Otherwise, passengers and crew have to climb over it.
Right, okay.
All right, see what you could do under your constraints.
And we're specifically looking at opening up that access at the shoreline, so, maybe that's more than one point. One point's better than for
Right.
boats and one point is better for people, so we can
So looking
specifically
into-
look at,
Right.
at the community meeting, they mentioned there's events where large numbers of people go in and out very quickly and that needed to be accommodated, so we could.
Okay, could we move on?
Yes.
Okay, one other item that came up that had some support was ball fields. So,
I cannot see that as
Recreation.
consistent with the input from the community.
But they did say active recreation. It was active.
there are areas
Make it more
adjacent
general,
to this
active
that may
Does say
lend
that,
themselves.
yeah.
Yeah. And this survey is not.
The first item is active.
Basically,
When do you want to put ball fields?
Well, maybe we'll leave that to the designers to try to identify potential.
Areas for active
Yes, depends on the size
I
of the
mean, that's a
area.
desire of the community.
Ballfields have to go in the new markets.
Not too many.
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any harm in putting it out there as a desire of the community.
Active play space.
Exactly.
Okay, all right.
Active
I
recreational
think that
space.
pretty much, the other thing that we agreed on was some language on an LDC East River Trust entity. So that was also in there. So that covers all the items
No,
I
it
had.
doesn't cover them all. I'd like to have a sense of what the attitude is for the Esplanade in
A
terms of.
little louder, please.
I'd like to have clarity as to what the ideas are for environmental protective aspect of this. In other words, resiliency or anything. What, is it just in the materials? On the
Specifically just in the materials.
So there
in
is
that
nothing
area.
about protection in any way?
Not specific
So
to this particular.
at a superstorm Sandy condition, this park will simply
It
dissolve?
would be impacted. There would
And
be
that's
some-
that, and so will everything beyond it?
I don't know about
That's-
dissolve, but
But I mean,
think
that's,
it would
it's an
be
accepted
impacted.
position that,
It would be an impacted area by that area, yes.
I would like to add that it's somehow, that's been stated that way, because I think that's unfortunate, there's nothing.
Well, that could be a whereas, but I don't think we need to comment on that one way or the other. Okay, so does the committee understand everything that's been put forward to recommend? Any questions?
I think maybe the phrase we were looking for is range of potential maritime use.
All right, you got that, Diana?
Range of potential maritime use?
Yeah, whether it's a kayak or a three-masted tall ship. It's broad range.
Explore creating a range.
Place for fishing.
No private boat.
Okay. All right, so let's try to call the question.
I called it.
Okay, all in favor?
Any opposed? Abstaining? Recused?
Great job, committee.
Unanimous.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Can I ask one more question? Mark?
And public.
Yeah, I want to ask that, when you come back, what is the timing on this? Could you just take us through what the timing
We
is?
can pull it up again.
Thanks, you don't have to pull it up, but just in terms of your next visit here with plans.
Likely in April, at some
In
point in
April?
We'll be back out, to CB3.
And can you do us a favor and give us a little bit of the history as to where this all, in other words, the earlier schemes, what became of them?
I'm happy to share the entire history of this.
That would be great.
It's on our website.
That would be great,
Download it.
that would be great. No, I have it, thank you.
All right, okay, members of the committee, please stick around. We have one more item that's very important that we try to handle tonight. Okay? And the public, if you're leaving, please do not have any discussions in the room so we can move on. All right, we're gonna have to wait 1 or 2 minutes. Whether,
Thank you, really good input.
I frankly don't think so, especially when I read.
You want to come down and
Good job, thank you.
All right,
I was like, I didn't know what we were like doing a whole vote.
Well, we're just waiting for the room to quiet down.
Oh, we have another thing.
Well,
Excuse me, folks, please settle down. We haven't finished the meeting yet. Thank you.
Okay,
I think we need to switch out one of the mics. This one seems to be down. Also, something's happening to the projection, so let me.
It's a sign,
Okay.
Diana, time to go.
so let's move on to the next and last item that we have for discussion tonight, which is an item that we took up last month, and we took it up at the community board. It's a proposal by Howard Hughes to put a concession, a new placement of a restaurant.
It's Parks Pool.
Under the FDR Drive at John Street. I will let them present their proposal. We basically rejected it at the full board meeting because we didn't want the sight lines and the view corridor blocked. That was the issue that the board had a very strong view on. So they're coming back with some adjustments, so we're here to see if we're ready to approve or we still
Approve the
think it's...
liquor license.
No, this is to approve a public design commission a license. Go ahead.
not.
Yeah, I know.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joy Gutierrez. I am an architect with the Parks Department, and this is with the Revenue and Concessions Division. I am joined with Israel Katz. He's the Director of Operations with Howard Hughes. And just some background on this. So Parks has a memorandum of understanding with EDC. And we put out a request for proposals to occupy one of the spaces in the service building. And that would be by a private concessionaire. So I will get into the presentation and tell you more about it. So this, the design for this was done by Woods Baggett, as the initial slide said. And the location for the blockhouse for this proposal is between Pier 15 and the South Street Seaport, and it's at the end of John Street. And right, so the site we're talking about is right here, and currently this is all open plaza underneath the FDR Drive.
But this is part of that space.
And these are some images of the site, which will inform the design by the consultant. So you see a lot of the red brick, the existing view shed of the waterfront. It's right here. Here's the existing brick, and then the plated glass. Some additional photos of the existing site. So currently, there is a service building, and that was done as part of the Esplanade project by EDC. There's a public restroom here, and then towards the back there are maintenance and operations spaces for storage and utilities. And then this is the space that has been licensed, or is in the process of being licensed to Howard Hughes. And so last summer they had a temporary operations permit, and that was to run the ice cream stand, which will, I believe, continue ice cream and coffee. And let me just go back here. So again, so the area that we're talking about is right here.
Where is it on the
upper left?
That's a problem.
It's here and then here.
So it's blocking the baby tree.
So let's take a look at the design. So this is the outdoor cafe that the concessionaire is proposing, and this is part of the license agreement. So part of the arrangement as part of this MOU is that the license fees, a percentage goes to the city fund. It does not go to parks. We do not have a discretionary fund. And in the MOU, it states that half of the revenues generated would be basically paying for the playground associate at the Imagination Playground. So I think that's something that many people weren't aware of. But
Could you repeat that, please? I'm sorry, I've never heard that before. What is that?
Right, so with all of our concessions, we get a percentage of their profit. And in this case, 50% of those fees will go towards payment of the playground associate at Imagination Playground.
How's it taken care of now?
I'm not clear on the details. I think it's just, yeah, it comes from.
50% that's an existing.
Of the revenues from this concession.
From the licensing.
From the licensing.
Who's building the concession?
All right, let's wait for the questions, come on. Get through it, and then we'll get to questions.
So the proposal is to have this outdoor cafe. This is the service bar, where food and drinks are handled. This is that existing ice cream stand. This is the public restroom. And then these are the two, large columns. And at the perimeter, we have brick planters. I'm just gonna keep going here. So earlier, we had shown a design where much of this structure was actually pushed a little bit south. And so now we've sort of moved it a little bit north and allowed for that pedestrian walkway, the thoroughfare coming from John Street. And then also, I think previously we had a storage structure that was a very tall height, and that has been removed. And so I think this is just a low sort of cabinet to hold the supplies for the public restrooms. This is the ceiling plan, which is sort of unclear. I'll show you in the rendering. And then this is the seating plan. So one thing to note, so there's a planter at the edge, but this area of seating is for the public.
No, the river's here.
And then I think down here there's the
That's north.
the water.
The bottom side is the Pale side.
Yes.
Where's
the
John
water-
Street
I-
here?
John Street is here.
Do you have the, I know we asked him the last time you presented to provide us with perspectives looking at the.
Yeah,
Get to
so
that,
that,
right. Perfect.
So we'll just go to that. So this is the view, standing northeast, looking southwest. So
What's the view towards the water?
the view towards the water. This is the view from John Street.
So this is your John Street. This is the revised John Street view, just for.
What view? What view?
Okay, all right, I'm just saying, this is what, this is.
Agreed.
Agreed.
So part of the design concept was to have this sort of transparent material that sort of makes the edges a little softer, since you are occupying a space below a huge piece of infrastructure. And then also, these are all glass panes that are completely transparent. And then these are the low wall with the counter. And then this is the
Expanded walkway.
This is the expanded walkway. And then again, that unit has been removed. And then this is, if there is plans for a winter enclosure.
That was the former look in the winter, and you can see the difference between the previous slide and this.
What is that structure above the roof, the roof of the viaduct?
That was a specific element
Well,
of their
we hold it to it.
no, and this is not just,
That is,
not just the historic district, they shouldn't want.
It's like a canopy.
Yeah,
So
the
the
I agree.
bottom top
If they
is a
push
DOH
it somewhere
requirement
else,
for,
fine.
because we sell this food and beverage,
Space.
it has to have coverage just to protect from any kind of.
Could you speak into the microphone,
Yes,
please?
so the roof or the bottom top is a Department of Health requirement because it's considered a food service area. If you sell food or beverage, you need to protect the area from any kind of debris or anything made going to the food.
I think,
No, the top part is decorative and it's part of the design. It's not the one layer that's right above the food service area is what kind of satisfies that compliance.
so in the case, so, obviously people are probably not thrilled that we still see this view is obstructed, and I know that was the main point for the community's concerns. Did you look at other sites that in fact did not, don't have open views like the Industry City site that, don't necessarily block from the city? In other words, don't block the view.
well, this was sort of part of the MOU that EDC had agreed to with parks. And so we were not part of those earlier conversations about, where this might be located. But I believe EDC did want this area to be activated.
It's funny, because EDC claimed they have absolutely no involvement with this, and they talked about it as being solely a parks situation. So I find that, as a board member, extremely confusing, and if not, a tad dishonest, to be quite frank.
Well, just to clarify, Parks did say it was, EDC did say it was pursuant to an MOU with Parks.
Right.
They handed it off to Parks, but they acknowledged it was pursuant to an MOU.
Is this the only space under the Esplanade that is pursuant to that MOU?
Yes, yes, there is no further area.
So there's no
Within the license agreement, there is an outline that shows that, you know, it cannot expand further than that. So the remainder of the plaza is open, and so you know.
And you don't know why this particular location? I mean, it's pretty obvious why, because it's right near Pier 17, and it's an incredible spot with an incredible view, but is there some other reason that we could not find it to go somewhere else? Could this not be amended in terms of a location?
I think that's a conversation that has to happen at the commissioner level.
Okay.
That was Bill Castro.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's have a few minutes of discussion. Okay.
Aren't you also looking for a liquor license? So this is going to be
We will be
restaurant,
serving,
drinking, and what would the hours of operation be?
So what we've listed was 11 o'clock on weekdays and Friday, Saturday, I mean 1 a.m. Request. It might be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 1 a.m.
Right.
Okay.
Isn't there a restaurant, when I was chair of the Waterfront Committee, isn't there a restaurant a little further down?
Wait,
Yeah, Industry
Kitchen, and we have water.
and one on Pier 15.
No, but underneath the highway.
Watermark.
There's a restaurant.
Right next door. Industry Kitchen, right next door.
So we built that about 5 years ago, and that's run by, what's the name?
Watermark is run, it's Alexander, and Industry Kitchen.
Who's that? Merchants.
Merchants.
Right, so now I'm just getting my, a lot in this head after 35 years on this board. But so, I'm just kicking in, there already is a restaurant there, so not only, let me just say something. Not only is it, I mean, the people here have an aesthetic issue, but also,
There's no view corridor there, Bob.
I understand, but also to put two restaurants is not fair, because these restaurants are really
Very similar
busting their ass.
Yep.
And we put one in there, and now to put one right there, I'm sure the Merchants Place isn't kicking butt. They came to this community board, they worked with us for that for years, so I think it's also an economic disincentive to put another restaurant there. And we could be looking in, after the next coming recession, we could looking at empty space, which I'll take over as a youth program.
You'll be
So
taking care
one
of the
thing that we
community
should
center.
also clarify is that the proposal for this structure is as temporary, meaning there's not going to be footings, and we'd be, bringing this to the DOB for temporary permits. So it's similar to.
How long is the
All the
lease?
questions.
The lease is 10 years, isn't it?
10-year lease.
So how is that temporary with a 10-year lease?
The structure is temporary.
So the idea.
Let's keep it under control.
All right, okay,
It is.
did this gentleman want to say something? Go
How
ahead.
well the business will do. So at first you get a temporary permit. And then if you find out that it's not going to do well in the winter, which many waterfront properties don't do well, then you would take it down and then you would put it back up every year in the summer.
You got a lot of
Right,
effort.
one thing you didn't show us was the depiction of what it would look like with the cladding on it, which would probably create even more of an obstruction.
What cladding?
In the
Winter.
It's gonna be,
Winter.
isn't it going to be open year-round, I was told?
Yes.
I think.
So the hopes is to open it winter around, but the tarp or whatever would be the material that would cover it in the winter. Will be completely clear and very sensitive to the same consideration of having a
Okay, did you want to say something? Introduce
For the
her.
record, I'm George Quinta, I work for Howard Hughes.
Okay.
I mean, I was here 2 years ago when Parks came
A little louder, please.
2 years ago, when Parks came here to mention this RFP, they requested, this spot. They were trying to have the bathrooms maintained, which is something we are doing as part of taking this license over. So those bathrooms are open to the public along the Esplanade. We are maintaining those. They also came to you and told you 2 years ago that half of the revenue here would go to support Imagination Playground, which had been an issue for them. They cannot get somebody. We volunteered to pay for somebody to maintain Imagination Park over the winter, and they couldn't find anybody to do it in parks. So they had come to you 2 years ago and told you this. They had a public RFP. They asked for the restaurant. It was part of the RFP that it sell liquor. It was part of the RFP that it extend 40 beyond. We just made a proposal. They accepted our proposal. It was important to us. We wanted to maintain the bathrooms. We had the capability to do it. So I just wanted to make sure people understood all of those issues, because those are important issues to
Thank you.
Maintaining the.
Can I just make one point, though? The issue that was overwhelmingly the community board's concern was the view corridor on John Street. Again, this is a historic district, and preserving that view towards the water is important. And I also wanted to put up what happened to that.
It'll be there. There it is.
Okay. I just wanted to show you, this is from the city, put out a study on the East River Esplanade. This is the City of New York study, put out by the Bloomberg administration, and Amanda Burden put it out from city planning. Anyway, the bottom line is, if you look on the right-hand side, one of their requirements was that nothing that is built under the FDR Drive, regardless of what it is, be built in a view corridor. This was the city's point of view just in 2007. So this is not a novel thing, and we're in a historic district, so obviously the city was saying, we don't want you blocking anything. So maybe if there was another location, we would consider it that didn't block a view corridor. I think the view corridor is the key issue, and I just have a sense that, unfortunately, you probably didn't solve it sufficiently for this group tonight. But let's get 3 more comments and then put it to a vote. Go ahead.
Yeah. Paul, if you go back to the slide of the what the structure will look like.
Right.
They don't show what that will look, not that one, the actual draw,
Rendering.
Right. The rendering.
John Street.
Thank you. Right, that one. You don't see what the height of people if people are in that, you're gonna lose the sight. The sight line, that's number one.
Okay.
All right, that's number one. I don't understand why we are even discussing anything to do with the seaport and how it's used without a comprehensive plan for the entire site. Because otherwise what you're going to do is you're going to get death by 1,000 cuts. We'll do this, then we'll do this, then we'll do this, and then we'll do this. I have yet to see in my time here.
All right, I know there's going to be additional discussion on all that. Okay.
The parking lot that you
Okay,
guys put.
wait.
Put the structure right into that parking lot that you put. It's low, it's not going to close.
Not a bad idea. Okay, last 2 comments, you two. Go ahead, Linda first.
I just had a comment. I don't understand. Did you say that 50% of the licensing revenue was going to go to the city?
No.
Imagination.
But where was the other 50% going to go?
To the Parks Department.
So everything goes to the city, 50% of it would be allocated to the park.
Sorry, can you just repeat that? It's going to the city?
It goes to the city.
So I don't understand. I have an issue with this being taken out of our community and funds going to the city of New York versus staying in the community.
Right, so 50% is going to pay for the playground associate.
Great, but why is not 100% staying in this community?
that is the way the funding structure works. We can't say that, oh, we'll take a percentage of these fees and then just, give it to.
I don't understand, because you're taking 100% of the fees and divvying it up. 50% are going to a playground, the other 50% are going to the city. Why can 100% not stay in this community and go to the parks? Talk about maintaining the Esplanade, where this is, there's a funding issue there that everybody was just talking about.
Right, okay, I understand.
Why cannot the funds from this project that's in our community stay here? You're asking us to make a concession, it's called a concession, correct? So why can't it stay in this community?
That was part of our recommendation.
That makes sense.
I think the recommendation should be absolutely negative, regardless of the way.
Okay, we're going to get to that, but now we have to just hear from the last comments. Go ahead, Linda.
Well, I just really want to know how to go about stopping this. Is there a way to stop them? I mean, whatever Howard Hughes wants, Howard Hughes gets, and we don't
This is
want-
parks, Linda. This is
I
parks.
understand it's parks, but it's going to Howard Hughes, so.
Yeah, but.
All right, Paul, don't get into a
Not
debate.
the
Let
point.
her just make her point.
So I wanted to say that nobody wants the view corridor blocked.
You should,
And
Right.
why they thought
So
it
we
was a
vote
good
against
idea.
You could go to the Public Design Commission and testify.
that's exactly what you should do if you feel that strongly.
I mean, that's the
We vote
thing,
against it.
or maybe we could ask our elected officials to take a position on this item,
I think we should.
if that's the consensus. Okay, one or two last comments. Okay, really, these are the last two.
Can I just say that it isn't just that this blocks the view corridor, this blocks specifically the single most important place on the view corridor on the entire Esplanade. And it blocks the waiver tree, and it continues to marginalization of the Seaport museums. And it's in between the waiver tree and the museum. It's ridiculous.
That should be highlighted.
Okay, that seems to be the consensus, but let's get one last comment.
One quick question. Between that lower barrier, which is solid, and the roof, is that open lattice or is there material in that lattice?
Paul,
That, I mean, the lattice is basically like a structure. Are you talking about here?
Yeah, those
Yeah,
lines,
there.
those lines. Is that
Yeah.
glass or is that?
No, lower.
That is not glass, it's like a rope.
There is a
Kind of
panel.
like
That's right,
I
it
don't
is.
wanna say hem.
Yeah.
The connection.
Well, obviously,
Oh.
they can supporting the glass.
This is, yeah, these are wooden posts,
Yeah.
and, so
Right,
that's the
but they could be
framing, and
bay
this is the
windows.
plate glass.
But
Plate
that's not
glass.
the point.
Why
The
is there
point
no
we don't
light
want it.
reflected on that plate glass? Is
We're
it
just
museum
wasting
quality?
time because we're all.
I know, so let's.
We're assuming we can see through that glass.
Everyone keeps raising their
That's
hand.
quite an assumption.
Yeah,
I just want to know when the public.
Well, that's the other thing too. That's a
All
rendering.
right, this is really it. Joe, be very brief, please.
I'll be very brief. I'm tired of this crap. You want money for that park? There are about 20 people's name on a plaque as you enter the park. Go hit those people for money.
Okay,
Not only
Okay.
that, when the city lets someone build something, they must have money to upkeep. And something went wrong.
all right, Diana, do we need to do a resolution if we're not changing our position? Do you think we should do one?
Yes, you should.
I guess because we're considering a modification.
Right, if it's modified, we should update our comment. Even if what we
Good
say
point,
doesn't
good
change.
point.
We don't feel that it's.
All right, so committee, all I've heard is negative comments
Our
from
original
everyone.
objections have not been satisfied.
Right.
Yes.
Period.
So we could just say we are, the view corridor, this has to be removed from the view corridor.
Tell us when does this come before the Public Design Commission?
Can we include that
Or has
it's,
it already?
It's not on the agenda yet, we're still, need to submit it for conceptual design.
Okay, settle down, we're almost done.
There's no date yet.
Thank you. Will
can
you
we
let us, will you
include,
let the community know?
that it's actually the most iconic view corridor of the seaport?
Okay, could you add
Generate
that?
that.
I don't think there's any
And
objection to
did we
that.
suggest that they relocate they find a different site, that
Yeah.
parks find a different site to provide this.
It's not on the view corridor.
Can we
That-
talk about which
that
sites
does-
you would be amenable to?
Any site that's on the
That-
view
that's
corridor.
Something that doesn't block the
that's
view
not-
corridor.
I don't understand what anything.
Well, we shouldn't say any site, because we just said we want other elements in this
It would be
Esplanade.
a site that doesn't have an open view corridor, obviously. Like the industry restaurant has no open view
All
corridor
right.
there. That's an example.
All right.
Will that
Call the
qualify
question.
like right south? I mean,
Oh,
right
can you cite the 2007 city position also?
Yeah, that
Is it in this resolution?
Yes, you could also point that the
And
city
forward it to
has,
Not where it's a
Howard
view
Hughes?
corridor, like there are places where
The
there's.
view
Okay.
corridor meaning
That's
from
the end
the
of the
street.
Right, from the end of John Street.
You could put it in front of the
Coming down John Street. You can actually, from Pearl Street, you can see down. All the way down. All the way down.
to the water.
It's an open area.
Let's go, Paul.
all right, committee, you know what we're voting on. We're voting to turn this down for all the reasons and
Yes.
all the inclusions. All in favor?
My chicken again?
Andy, go ahead.
Any opposed? Any abstaining?
I'm
Any,
abstaining.
one abstention, any recusals?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all. Have a good evening.
You have to earn your pension.
Thanks, Paul.
Good meeting. Yeah.
What can I say? I knew this was going to be long, but we did get through most of the important
Library. Dennis Walker, he's a fantastic guy. Wanted to ask for a long time.
They don't know. They murdered one day.
Hey,
Somehow the idea of you guys talking about building something on a pier that's totally unsafe, I don't understand.
I'm not. Don't look at me.
hey, it's probably not going to happen in our lifetimes. So don't
That's
worry
what I
about it.
said. It's not going to happen.
I agree, but I
Started
think
to learn how to look at these
my
architectural.
experience
I liked
is
your
to
comment. You
just
were right
start
on the money.
advocating for things
But how many?
many years in advance is what
But
you
how
do.
many things have I been part of an avocation, and a generation later, the new people who have moved in really don't want it. They want to do something
That happens
different.
occasionally, but like Hudson River Park took years and years to develop.
Well, that's a whole different
Yeah, no,
ballgame.
they-
They have to work it
There
on a
are,
separate.
there are other projects like that. 250 Water Street is another example that's been,
You know what you guys didn't bring up, which is, do you really need another restaurant to compete with the other restaurants that exist?
That's about That's exactly right.
Well, he was talking about an economic disincentive to the one restaurant that's next door, and I'm talking about all the rest of the restaurants that are
thank
on.
you, sir.
Similar point.
For all your assistance.
So,
You're okay with how this went?
absolutely, I guess my question is, used to I've been helpful. I need to be helpful at all.
I mean, I don't see what choice they have other than to call
I was kind of leaving you alone on that. I don't know.
That's very good.
But I didn't say you were handling it, so I didn't feel I needed to.
Yeah, no. All right, but maybe,
Understand how the right relationship and came
I don't. All
I'm curious as how this could happen in the future where the same slightly murky leasing agreement, whatever it
Of course
is.
it can, and there was a point in the meeting where I think you asked a question, and he answered it, and I felt the way he answered it required a reframing of your question.
That was right.
Well, I didn't, that's what I should have. The question was, you asked, what vision do they have of building? And he said none, but I think he was answering it in the context of this project. And I think we could have broadened the question, well, generally across, because you have something going on just south of this project. That doesn't involve you. Anyway, I don't have an understanding. I was just clarifying. At one point, he did say there was an MOU from EDC with Parks, but he completely pushed the issue of Parks, which I think was a bit disingenuous.
It was.
They issued an MOU that allowed Parks to
Take it to leave it.
Yeah.
Oh. You do want to add into that resolution, the fact that